Kia ora, folks. So today we have another story from our past, which throws light on the question of how sovereignty and the treaty was understood for most of our history. Of course, in recent decades, the idea has been promoted that in signing the treaty, the chiefs did not give up sovereignty, but only agreed to Governor Hobson having authority over Pakeha settlers, whilst Māori retained full independent rule over themselves. That's what I would call the dual sovereignty interpretation of the treaty. Well, today I want to bring another story out of my book, One Sun in the Sky, and I will give you some more details later about how you can get a copy of that. But it's a story which once again throws a very different light on this question. So it relates to a letter prepared by a group of Ngāti Whātua chiefs of the Kaipara area north of Auckland in late 1863. And it was published in the local paper, the Albert Land Gazette. At the time, there was increasing anxiety among settlers in the area due to the ongoing land wars in Taranaki and the Waikato. And many wondered if the conflict was going to spread to their area. So in order to reassure their neighbours, these chiefs got together at the Otamatea Marae and penned an open letter for the local paper. However, before we look at the letter, let's just locate ourselves geographically. Here is the area north of Auckland, and as you can see, I've highlighted the location of the Otamatea Marae. It's just west of Kaiwaka on an arm of the Kaipara Harbour. It's about 2 hours drive from Auckland. And my wife and I were up there recently. This is a photo I took looking down the Otamatea arm of the Kaipara. It's quite a beautiful area. This is the marae itself, which is further down the harbour. And this is the beautiful little church next to the marae, which was constructed by Arama Karaka, one of the chiefs who signed the letter we're about to look at. And Karaka and some of the other chiefs who also signed the letter are buried in the cemetery right here. And another interesting point is my wife's great-grandparents who farmed the area, are also buried here. In fact, 3 generations of her forebears had farming roots in this area, and some knew the chiefs involved in this story. Anyway, here's the letter. It was published in the Albert Land Gazette on October 1st, 1863. You can actually find this online in the Papers Past section of the National Library. The reference is noted there, and also a link if you want to look it up for yourself. Now, it's entitled Letter from the Māoris to the Pakehas, and there's a wee intro from the editor of the paper, and then it begins. This is a word to our beloved friends, the Pakehas of Manawai, Oruawharo, Paparoa, Matakohi, and all in the Kaipara. Some of you may have heard false reports concerning the Māoris and their plans for the future. Do not think we have forgotten our promises made to you in the beginning at the feast of Otamatea. We have united ourselves to you with feelings of love and good faith, desiring that justice and truth should overrule all our transactions, and discouraging anything like oppression either on the part of the Māori or the white man. We wish to live at peace with all men. And then they go on to explain a little bit why they don't want to have conflict in their area and they don't support that. And then they finish with this comment, which is the one that is pertinent to our point today. In the days of the first Governor Hobson, we took the Queen of England as our parent and protector and have always remembered our word. In the days of Governor Fitzroy, Governor Grey, Governor Brown, and now in the days of Governor Grey, who rules over us, we remember them still and take refuge in the name of Victoria, and always do we pray that she may have wisdom given to her to govern us according to the law of God. This is all we have to say to our friends the Pakehas. Let us dwell in peace. From your loving friends. And there it lists 11 chiefs, including Arama Karaka, and it also says, and all the chiefs of the Kaipara. Now, The first thing that struck me when I came across this letter was the genuine, heartfelt friendship that so clearly existed between local Māori and the European settlers in this area. I'm sure it was not unique to this area. However, stories of good relations between Māori and Pakeha in our history are not something we hear much about these days. So I think this is quite a special piece of our history to bring forward at this point. The second thing which struck me, and this is the reason why the story of this letter is included in my book, is the very obvious insight it offers us into these chiefs' understanding of Crown sovereignty and the treaty. These chiefs clearly did not see the treaty as an equal constitutional partnership whereby their authority was equal with the governor. Neither did they see the governor's authority as only being over Pakeha settlers. They specifically acknowledged that since giving their word of agreement to the treaty in the days of Governor Hobson, they understand that the Queen has held the right to govern all the people of New Zealand, including themselves. And they even mention each of her governors since then, acknowledging their authority to, quote, rule over us. So this obviously doesn't fit the modern paradigm of treaty interpretation. However, once again, it is a clearly recorded fact of history. Now, as I have acknowledged before, there is no question that the Crown often fell short of exercising its sovereignty in a way that was fair and just to Māori. But that is a separate question from how the original parties to the treaty understood what it meant in terms of sovereignty. And the treaty settlements process is a good faith attempt to try and right some of those wrongs. And as I've also said before, there's no doubt that the Article 2 promise of chieftainship or protection of chieftainship, tino rangatiratanga, also means something. And we need to have a discussion around what that might mean today. But that discussion needs to recognise that from the beginning, and for nearly 150 years, chieftainship was always understood as being affirmed or protected within the context of the overarching sovereignty of the Crown over all New Zealanders. There was never any understanding that the treaty established two separate sovereignties in New Zealand. And I certainly have never come across any clear historical evidence to that effect. However, there is plenty of straightforward evidence, like the letter which I've just shared, which shows tribal leaders acknowledging Crown sovereignty over all New Zealanders. And if you want to see more of that evidence, then get a copy of my book, One Sun in the Sky. It is full of documented accounts, much like this one. Thousands of New Zealanders have now read it and found it very helpful, both in understanding this issue of sovereignty and in getting a good grasp of our history overall. So you can get a copy of it online at the link shown there, or many libraries now have it as well, so you could read it, get a copy from the library. Now, no doubt I will receive a lot of feedback and comments on this video, and that's fine. I believe in free speech. However, keep it respectful and try and engage with the evidence rather than just making assertions. And to be honest, I already know what many of the critics will say, because the comments generally tend to be the same. But again, that's fine. Make your comments, and then maybe we can address some of those in another video. So that's it for today. As I say, get the book, review the evidence for yourself, and also there is a link here where you can subscribe to this channel and keep up to date with new material that comes out, because it is my intention to bring forward some more interesting stories from our history on this issue of sovereignty and the treaty. So I will see you in the next one.